Update. Am I the a-hole for cutting off my mother-in-law after she made a joke about poking holes in our condoms? Original post. I, 38 female, have been with my husband James for 4 years. We're both child-free and don't plan to have kids in the future. When we first got married, we explained this to our families. My family was fine with it, but his wasn't, especially my mother-in-law. I'll call her Mary for privacy. She is passive-aggressive or outright tells us we'll change our mind soon. For example, she'll say things like, "I can't wait to be a grandma," even though we've made it clear that we don't want children. If we try to respond, she just pretends not to hear us. This has made me very uncomfortable, and I've told my husband multiple times, but he just brushes it off, saying she'll accept it eventually. However, things came to a head recently. James was hosting a dinner party and invited his family as well as mine. While we were eating, my mother-in-law jokingly said, "You know, I've thought about poking holes in your and James's rubbers so I could be a grandma. It's so smart and you'd never know," before laughing. I was horrified. After that, I excused myself and left the house. James followed, saying I was being dramatic and that it was just a joke. I told him it wasn't funny and asked what would happen if she actually did something like that. We argued for a bit before he stormed back inside and I drove off. I've since blocked my mother-in-law on all social media and deleted her number. Now the whole family is furious with me, calling me sensitive and paranoid. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Mother-in-law's comments, including the one about the rubbers, have all been way over the line and squarely in the none of your business category. Your husband should have handled this with his mother quite a while ago. Now he has no choice. Tell your husband the reason you have gone to the lengths you have gone. Leaving the dinner, blocking his mother in social media, and deleting her are all because he is failing to safeguard you from her. This is his responsibility because it is his mother. He needs to stop brushing it off. He needs to go see her face to face and say, "Mom, you are hurting me when you press us for grandkids. We are not having children. That's my final decision." You need to stop mentioning it to either one of us. By mentioning it at dinner, you cross the line and you need to apologize. To never speak of us having kids in front of us again. Yes, but he won't confront Mom. I think you need to tell him with his threat from mother-in-law. Either he needs a vasectomy, minor surgery, or you need to get your tubes tied, more invasive surgery. It's an easily fixable situation, OP. Tell hubby to get this nip. His reaction will tell you why he won't shut his mama down. You're not being sensitive, you're being sane. That's not a joke, it's a threat. And your husband needs to get his head out of his butt. If he won't stand up to his mom, he's part of the problem. Get that snip, OP. You deserve better than this. Question. Why don't one of you get fixed if you're adamant on not having kids? It's my husband who refuses to get a procedure done. I've already offered to get my tubes tied and other procedures, but he says he's not ready yet and doesn't want me to get surgery either until we're both ready. We're referring to him because I'm only waiting on him right now. He wants kids. Yep, he's on his mommy's side. Completely. Now for the update a few days later. After everything that happened, I had a talk with my husband last night about wanting him to take a stronger step toward our commitment to being child-free. I told him that unless he got a vasectomy or a similar procedure, I wouldn't be comfortable sleeping with him. I want him to show he can stand up to his mother and that he is as committed to being child-free as I am. Although honestly, I started doubting that after posting the first story. Not in a rude way, of course. My husband said he still wasn't ready and that I was moving too fast. He added that by asking him to stand up to his mother, I was essentially asking him to disrespect her for my sake. At that point, I asked him directly if he wanted kids or not, telling him to stop beating around the bush because I would divorce him and disappear if he didn't. That finally got him to open up, and he admitted that he did want kids. And had secretly been hoping for either an accident or that I would change my mind, just as many of you in the comments had predicted. But what really shocked me was when he confessed he'd actually considered tampering with our birth control before, but just hadn't done through with it yet. It now made sense why he only wanted to use rubbers for our birth control. After that, I told him that, as of now, our marriage was over and that I would be filing for divorce as soon as possible. I made sure to tell him that any child I could have had would never be in his or my mother-in-law's grasp. He tried to protest, but I was firm on leaving. Honestly, he was planning to baby trap me. Nice try, but not with me. Right now, I'm staying at my sister's house. I'm planning to find a lawyer to start the divorce proceedings, but I know I can't go back to that house with him or my mother-in-law involved in any way. This entire situation has left me feeling very shaken and worried. Why? Just why? Why would you get into a relationship with someone who doesn't want kids if you want kids? I cannot understand people like this man. How stupid it is to get into a relationship hoping your partner will change their minds. These are stupid people. Planning on tampering with birth control? Now that's just diabolical. My ex-husband thought I will change my mind. I made extra sure current husband also didn't want kids, been together for almost 20 years now and child-free. Now hold on a second. If he tries to change your mind about divorce, tell him that you'll stay on the condition that he signs the form for you to get your tubes tied. Either way, you'll get divorced. But at least you won't have to worry about kids in the next relationship because you'll just let them know your tubes are tied. He'll probably end the marriage or cheat on you and get some dumb broad pregnant. That's freaking genius. The fact that you have to have a husband sign off on it is utterly stupid. But this is one way to get it done. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my wife spend money on her best friend? My wife has known her best friend since middle school. Her friend is a lawyer and her family's quite well off. She makes a lot and is generous with it. My wife has had a few things paid for by her friend. Specifically, she covered my wife's portion of her bachelorette trip because the other friends didn't make much and she covered it. She also paid part of my wife's rent twice, and she usually picks up the bill when they go out for food. This friend is now marrying a doctor and I don't think they have any trouble paying for anything they want. My wife is a stay-at-home mom and I'm a mechanic. I recently brought home a $3,000 bonus, and when I told my wife, she immediately started talking about buying her friend a really expensive necklace from a brand she knows her friend wants. She showed it to me, and the cheapest necklace is $2,000 on a website. She insisted I should spend the bonus on a wedding gift for her friend. I shut her down and told her it's my bonus and that she can't expect me to buy her friend something this expensive. I don't think wedding gifts should even exceed $100. She began arguing, saying that I spend money on lunches out and hobbies that cost a lot. So why can't she spend some money on a gift for her friend? I do spend a bit on my hobbies and have 2 cars, but I also work hard. Plus, her friend and her fiancé, who is a doctor, already own a house while we were still renting. I told her she was being unreasonable, and she insists we sit down and tally everything I've spent on myself in the last year. If it's higher than $2,000, she thinks I should pay for the necklace. I think it's ridiculous to compare my spending to an extravagant gift for her friend, and I'm refusing to let her buy it. She insists her friend has spent a lot on her and argues that we saved money because her friend pays for meals and activities whenever they go out, so it doesn't come out of our money. I get that the unbalanced relationship isn't ideal, but my wife could decline expensive outings if she wanted to even things out. Now, she's refusing to talk to me, and I'm wondering if I'm the a-hole here. Not the a-hole for refusing to buy your wife's friend an expensive gift that costs more than half of your $3,000 bonus. However, you may be the a-hole if there's an unequal distribution of money and limited input from your wife on how it's spent. When one spouse stays at home, the breadwinner can't lay total claim to the income. It's not my money versus our money. Supporting a stay-at-home spouse requires more than just covering basic needs, while unilaterally spending on hobbies and multiple vehicles, especially if you're also frustrated about renting instead of owning. Your wife has a valid reason to question your cumulative fun money expenses. If you're genuinely concerned about whether you're the a-hole, it could help to sit down and tally up everything you've spent on yourself this year. You might find she has a point and that you're spending significantly on yourself while she gets very little. Some might even see this as financial control, considering the power dynamic in play. As the breadwinner, you hold much of the leverage. The devil is in the details. Without the history or context, OP is obviously not wrong. But these kinds of posts tend to hit on other concerning things that could be worse than what he is defending himself from. Not guaranteed at all, but this should raise a few eyebrows at least. The devil is in the details. For sure, it always is. But this definitely raised my eyebrow. It sounds like the necklace is really a straw man argument for a much bigger gripe his wife has about how finances are split. OP, my husband was a stay-at-home dad when our boys were young because I generated a significantly larger income from my growing business. And we agreed that as long as the kids were with one of us, it didn't matter who. After we had twins, they went to daycare 1 day a week because he literally had his hands full. From the start, we agreed on an equal amount for hobby money/fun money for each of us, despite our income disparity. We could spend this money as we wished. It was where birthday gifts for each other came from. All other money was considered joint funds for bills, savings, pensions, etc. My question to you is, why do you believe you deserve hobby money because you work hard, but your wife doesn't? Believe me, I worked 16-hour days in the beginning getting things off the ground, and even with just one child at a time, I realized I had an easier deal. My husband couldn't take a break unless the baby was sleeping. He was exhausted from constantly watching for safety issues, choking hazards, making baby food, feeding, playing, reading stories, and walking the floor when our son was teething or had cramps. We both did night duty, so we were both tired, but he had no let up. He loved being a stay-at-home dad, but once our younger two started school, he was also rather relieved. He said, "I wouldn't have missed those years for the world, but I never ever want to do them again." Parenting alone with small kids is a job, and a stressful one at that. Why does your job deserve a hobby fund, but hers does not? Your wife deserves money she can save up and spend on a gift for her friend. Money she doesn't need your permission to spend, just as you don't ask her permission to spend your hobby money. If you don't see that, and clearly you don't, then it means you don't recognize her work and the efforts she put into the job of raising your children as having any value. You're essentially saying you don't see it as work. If I were your wife, I'd not only be angry, but I'd also feel completely demeaned. Shame on you. Most definitely you're the a-hole. Opie said that the best friend has covered his wife's portion of the rent in 2 separate occasions. How the heck does that work if his wife is a stay-at-home mom with no income? And even if she does have some sort of income, maybe an online presence, or she does some type of freelance work online or whatever, why would Opie ever let someone else cover his wife's portion of the rent? It makes 0 sense. 100% agree that the Opie is the a-hole. Every single element of this post, and OP's reply just reek of it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my disabled cousin at my wedding? I, 26 female, am getting married soon to my amazing fiancé Liam, 30 male, and I'm struggling with whether or not to invite my cousin Tom, 29 male. Tom has a developmental disability, and while he is almost 30, he has the intellectual capacity of about a 7-year-old. I've always tried to be patient and understanding, but he has consistently crossed physical boundaries with me in ways that make me really uncomfortable. I've always been an early bloomer and have a larger than average chest. Because of the sports I did in high school and continue to this day, I would say I'm in good shape. I only mention this because it's often the reason my family uses to justify Tom's behavior. Over the years, Tom has touched my chest and butt quite a few times. He's also hugged me tightly and tried to kiss me, and even though I immediately told him to stop each time, it never seems to stick. He tells his caretakers, nurses, and even live-in caregivers that I'm his girlfriend. He doesn't like Liam because he insists Liam isn't my fiancé, believing instead that he is my boyfriend. Tom also talks about how he will marry me. It kind of feels like when a little kid tells their parent they're going to marry them, but it's still very uncomfortable. I've brought this up with my family, but they always downplay it, saying Tom doesn't understand and that he's just showing affection. The excuse they most often use is, he's a little boy in a man's body, and you're a conventionally attractive woman. When I told my mom how uncomfortable it makes me, she said it probably entertained his behavior too much, and that is harmless. She insists I should just be firm, but anytime I've tried, the family accuses me of being mean to him. With my wedding coming up, I want the day to be relaxed and special without constantly worrying about Tom overstepping boundaries. When I told my family that I was considering not inviting him, they were outraged. They said I was being unfair, cruel, and that he'd be devastated not to come. My mom even said it would ruin his day and make it obvious that he's different, which she thinks is heartless. I understand that Tom can't help certain behaviors, but I feel like my family has completely ignored my feelings on this. They always brush off my discomfort and say it's my responsibility to manage it, or that he doesn't know any better. But it's my wedding, and I don't want to be on edge the whole time. Liam says I have every right not to invite him, especially because of how he treats both of us, as though our relationship isn't real. Still, I wonder if I'm being too harsh or unkind, since Tom isn't fully aware of boundaries and doesn't really know what he's doing is bad or harmful, especially because his parents and other family members encourage it. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. If he is a little boy in a man's body, there should be no problem finding someone to look after him. The fact they say you probably entertain him and that this would ruin his day is a hill I would die on. It's not his day, and they have been enabling his behavior for too long. If he can't help his behavior because of his disability, he should have a caretaker that looks after him. He does have caretakers. And my family doesn't like my fiancé because he stepped in between me and my cousin and yelled at him until he cried. You should have eloped. It sounds like the only one in your side is your fiancé. My grandparents are supportive. Both of them are in their late 70s and I didn't elope because they wanted to watch me get married. My grandfather is walking me down the aisle and I'm wearing my grandmother's wedding dress. Can you take your grandparents with you when you elope so they are part of your special day? It sounds like you care too much about people who don't care about you. Make it a special day with your grandparents and forget everyone else. This could also keep you from wasting a ton of money on an event that is just going to make you anxious. My grandparents couldn't stop Tom, but he isn't allowed in their house. I think the first time I saw my granddad cry was the day that I told him Tom had been touching me. I was 13, and he just held me and apologized over and over for not noticing. My grandma has threatened to go after Tom with a rolling pin if he comes in her house again. They're the only two family members who have never made excuses for him. The thing is, both of them are unable to travel long distances. They're getting older and wouldn't be able to come if I eloped.